Welcome back to the N07 Podcast. Not much has happened, but there is one particular thing that has occurred over the past 2 weeks that the podcast has not been up. Particularly, Series 8 of Doctor Who has started. And with me to talk about this are...
Falco, also better known as David.
Shoop and Whoop, better known as Daniel.
And I'm Trilbee, otherwise known as Mr. TARDIS Reviews.
Who has graciously taken some time out of his busy schedule to join us in the discussions.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great having you.
Trilbee busy.
Well, he has...
You cannot even fathom.
He's been working on that television pilot, and that takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, that has been my life for about 3 weeks. And then there's Doctor Who. Clearly my priorities are in order.
Yes, of course. Cards on the table. What did we think of Deep Breath?
I liked it.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
I also liked it. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Well done. Good talk.
I'm Falco, he was Trilbee, he was Shoop, he was Natal, bye.
We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about Pokemon.
I will not be there for that.
No.
Oh, I'll come back.
Oh, well...
For
What's a Digimon?
For the Pokemans.
Oh, well, I'll have to keep it in mind. But, when I thought of Deep Breath, I was a bit on the fence. I was thinking, do I like this, or do I feel as though that it does some things right and other things wrong? And ultimately, I like it, but it's got its problems. But then again, what doesn't have problems?
Did you watch it the second time around?
I started to, but time constraints. I had my class earlier today. I watched pretty much what I needed to see, though, the second time around. Thoughts on Capaldi?
Loved him.
I like him.
He's pretty brilliant. Definitely the opposite of Matt Smith, as we were very well promised.
Mm-hmm. People are sitting comparing him at the moment to other doctors, and he does have a flair of pretty much every doctor trait, but I'm seeing him more as a standalone at the moment. He is... I can't see him as any other doctor apart from Capaldi. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. He's bringing his own persona to the character. If I could compare him most to any other doctor, it would definitely be Sylvester McCoy, though.
Yeah, McCoy.
I'm not sure if it's just the costume, but I'm thinking there's quite a bit of Pertwee in there.
Yeah, definitely. The costume brings it to about Pertwee.
Yeah, and the hair and just how confident he feels when confronting people. But the weird thing about post-regeneration stories is that they spend quite a lot of time holding back just who the Doctor really is.
Sometimes they also bring forward, like, Matt Smith really did in 11th Hour, I thought, still had a bit of their previous incarnations' traits still locked in them, that they just kind of had to shake out. And I really... If it sort of was just with Capaldi, in my opinion, the sort of Smith traits were with him until the opening title sequence.
It's funny how they kind of try to channel previous Doctors just after regeneration.
It makes a little sense, though, that there is still a bit of, say, in Capaldi there was still a bit of Smith, like, straight away, because he's changed into a new person. It doesn't just flow straight out of him. It's going to take time to kick all the old characteristics out of the body, for want of a better word.
Yeah, this is true. There was a bit of a, from what I could tell, there was a bit of a, not major, but some minor amnesia going on with him at the start of the episode. It seems as though that's happened sort of off and on over the years.
He seemed to be still drunk from Matt Smith's regeneration.
Yeah, he was maybe just being a little bit eccentric.
It's mainly just to have comedy in the opening, just to sort of ease the transition. Because you've got audience members who... Matt Smith will have been their Doctor. This could... Like, people forget this, but this could be, like, an audience member's first regeneration. And they naturally grow very attached to who they consider to be their Doctor. So you have that comedy to sort of lighten the tone and to sort of ease them into this new Doctor before you go into the darker places, which I think worked really well in this episode at least.
Especially since we're more likely going to be going into very dark places at some point during Capaldi's tenure.
Oh, the next episode we're going, quote-unquote, into darkness.
So they're literally going into darker places.
Yeah, we're gonna see the new Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's dark. That is dark.
So we got a new title sequence as well. Thank God. I personally did not enjoy the Series 7 Part 2 title sequence.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was the best title sequence ever.
Well, then this one or the Series 7 Part 2 one?
Series 7 Part 2 one, yeah. Hands down best title sequence to date, you know. me and 4 other people did get, hated on for months after releasing a certain video about it that doesn't exist anymore.
Hey, wait, it doesn't exist?
It's privatized now.
Oh.
That's no fun. But I did like the Series 7 Part 2 opening. I wouldn't call it my favourite, but I was one of the few defenders when it was first announced. When it was first revealed, sorry. But for this one, I like the visuals, but I have a bit of a disdain for the music.
I'm indifferent to the music. I'd probably have to listen to it a few more times. But I do like the visuals. It's something different, and it still conveys more or less what Doctor Who's about, which is, time travel. Not sure how I feel about the TARDIS model in it, though. I like it.
The TARDIS is bad.
I would have to look at it a bit more.
It's not the most badly rendered one, but it's like, when will the BBC, after 2010, learn to properly light a TARDIS in title sequence?
But that's the thing.
The
TARDIS looks great.
At least the doors don't open wrong.
Like, the TARDIS looks great in like the series 1 to 4 title sequence.
Even in Series 5, the original one, it looks good.
Yeah.
And even in like the Sylvester McCoy opening, that's not a badly rendered TARDIS for 1987.
Yeah, I love that opening title sequence. I love that music.
I mean, at the end of the episode, the TARDIS itself, when it materializes back in Victorian London to collect Clara, does seem a little brighter than it previously did, but it's still in the vortex, or wherever it is in the title sequence. It's just the lighting of it didn't change at all. It just stayed the same sort of plywood painted blue tone.
Yeah, that is true. I think the lighting is really what sort of makes it have that shoddy quality.
It looks a bit like plastic.
And that was my main problem with the TARDIS in the previous title sequence, was it wasn't lit properly at all. Even though, but the windows looked a lot better in this one. That's a main problem I had with the thing, is the windows look so fake in the Series 7 Part 2 titles. It's a little thing, but it bothers me.
For those of you wondering, we're nerds.
No!
I've forgotten which title sequence is the Series 7 Part 2. Was that the one with the dog drinking tea?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. Saturated to hell, or whatever it was.
But yeah, I love the visuals. I did love. It took me a little while, but I've really warmed up with him, and I love it. I've heard I did hear a couple people covering it, and I was like, I don't like the sound of it. But the actual theme, the first time I heard it, I was like, I really did like it then. At the ending theme version of it.
I didn't stick around for the ending theme version of it because that's when the BBC One announcer came on. I was watching it on a stream.
I actually need to go through the credits to listen to that version of the theme. I guess as soon as the next time trailer ended, I just stopped because I watched it on iPlayer. So I actually need to acquaint myself with that. But the music is just so high pitched, and it lacks any sort of energy. It lacks the power that I expected from previous versions.
I've heard it was slightly different at the premiere. I heard it was a bit more low-pitched and faster-paced. Yeah, like in the premiere screenings. On the World Tour, not like the ones that they broadcasted in the cinemas on the 23rd.
Then again, the only thing we have from those is cell phone hand cam and screaming little fangirls. But we digress.
Oh my god, look at that.
That's why I didn't go to the cinema this time.
I didn't go to the cinema because I'd have to go all the way to Georgia to go to a cinema, and I didn't have a very good experience with Day of the Doctor in the cinema, so why would I go to Deep Breath in the cinema?
But hands down to, is his name Billy Hanshaw, is it? I can't remember his last name.
Guy. Let's call him Guy.
Well, hands down to the guy Billy, yeah, who made it. A fan getting recognized too is a neon visual. But that's not a rant I should put here. Basically a fan getting discovered on YouTube for essentially just a freelance.
I'm pretty sure he's done stuff before for the BBC.
I think he's done stuff for 4OD and little stuffs.
I know,
little bits
he's
here and
definitely
there.
done stuff before for people.
Yeah, but a fan who just made a title sequence for a portfolio
And then it
piece,
gets practically adopted.
Yeah. And I think he's actually sticking around with the BBC to do a little bit more stuff. I think he said he's doing something in episode 3. I think he said that on Twitter, the market is today, actually. And that really interests me, he's sticking around. But I think that's wonderful that a fan's getting noticed and getting pulled into the BBC to essentially make what makes the show so iconic as well.
Yeah, it's a big deal getting a fan on to do something that will literally be seen every week.
It's been a year of good surprises as far as crew has gone on Series 8 of Doctor Who, as far as dragging in new writers, new directors, female directors, wish there's a few more female writers, and now pulling in just a freelance graphic designer as a fan to do the title sequence, or the conception of it.
And not only is there a female director, but the one who's doing the series finale, the name escapes me, her directorial debut was the final Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Really?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, the one before Wes Craven's New Nightmare. The final Nightmare. That was her directorial debut.
Wow.
That's a long time ago, I think.
Yeah, it was like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
I like that, though, as a female director doing the finale. It's nice to see that they're being a bit more open. It's like Stephen Moffat trying to, right, let's give them what we want. And I have faith that it's going to be really good. From the one promo picture that I've seen of the finale, that's the one that they really couldn't hide, but I wish they could have hid.
Yeah, the director of episodes 11 and 12, Rachel Talalay, or Talalay, I could be pronouncing that wrong, and episode 10 is Sherry Folkson. So we've got 2 female directors doing the last 3 episodes, which is brilliant as far as I'm concerned.
Fantastic. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a female director for the finales, anyway.
It's good for being progressive, but at the end of the day, I want a good episode.
Yeah, it's good for being progressive, but it's
yeah.
like, it's a bad way of thinking about this. If they mess up the finales, it's going to be a permanent stain on Doctor Who. It's like the first time we ever got a female director in to do a series finale, and they messed it up. But I suppose, at the same time, it's like they can't really mess it up. Like, the messing up for an episode really always comes back to the writer. I mean, they can mess up the visuals, yeah. I mean, the messing, like, you can't mess up the visuals of an episode, but it's TV, like you said, it always comes back to the writer rather than the director.
But the thing I really like about Doctor Who now is that even if the scripts are terrible, they at least always look really good. They've got some really great directors over the past few years, especially since Moffat took over. They really have upped their game in terms of visuals and how it's shot and filmed.
Yeah, Series 7 was a great example of that.
Yeah, the visual effects have gotten better since Moffat came along, as far as I can tell.
Even the cinematography, never mind the visual effects, cinematography is just stepped up. I mean, I watched Series 3 a couple of days. I watched Human Nature and Family of Blood, and then...
Some of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, and then I rewatched Deep Breath, his name almost escaped me, and I was like, they look completely different as far as cinematography goes. Like, completely different. And I think that's great.
And believe it or not, like, because that was, like, from Series 3 to Series 8, the budget's gone down since then.
Really?
They've been given less money.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's basically just a thing across the BBC as a whole, because budgets have gone down. But that's kind of forced them to be more creative. I don't know if you've seen Doctor Who Extra, which is like a replacement for Confidential that's online only, but it's a 10-minute behind-the-scenes thing. The effects on the robot in Deep Breath were pretty much all practical, and it looks brilliant.
They had a dummy, but they used the dummy for one scene, and that's the scene where he's sitting in the chair,
Yeah,
recharging.
man. And it's just like the side shot when he's moving around and looking at Clara when she's negotiating her life. And it's such a great model.
It is really good.
I thought it was a CG, like, internal clockwork stuff, because it looked like so real and stuff, but then it turned out no, it was just a model. That wasn't even a real person. And I was just kind of blown away.
Well, let's actually start talking about the episode itself, because we've been going on for 15 minutes and we've barely talked about the actual episode.
That'll be good.
We've been a bit scattered.
There's been, obviously, and Falco called this after watching the episode.
I called this actually, no one was around apart from me and a couple people in the next room, but I called it within the second the scene happened. But then I called it out to you, like, after the episode happened.
Yeah, that, the kiss between Jenny and not Strax, Jenny and Vastra.
Fanfiction.
Jenny and Strax.
That would have been a very different scene.
But the kiss, quote unquote, between Jenny and Vastra, there'd be articles about it, and there'd be bigotry about it within 24 hours, and lo and behold, it happened. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The beginning of the episode, I'm trying to think. The T-Rex didn't look too bad. All things
Didn't
considered.
actually.
It looked pretty good.
We got people complaining about just how big the dinosaur is. And I'm just thinking, if that's like really the big complaint you have with the episode, then I think the episode has done a good job.
Yeah, I like the dinosaur. Honestly, I thought there would have been more of it, but it's a framing device.
I'm glad there wasn't more of it, because when I saw it in the trailer, I was like, if this is an episode 1, and from what I've heard it's going to be an episode 1, it seems like they're cramming too much in it, but it was a good excuse to why it was there, like how it got to London.
Yeah, it was to really just get the plot moving, and they did it in a way that felt natural enough.
I still don't think they did say that the TARDIS crash landing wasn't just down to the dinosaur, but I like the fact that it sort of fell into that category that was partially responsible for it. God knows, I don't know how, like Matt Smith's Doctor did hit a couple of switches at the end of, just before he regenerated to get the TARDIS going, but to end up in the throat of a dinosaur is hard to believe that just happened.
Well, in Deep Breath, they sort of implied that there's been a little bit of time between the regeneration and them winding up with the dinosaur. So when Clara sort of comes out with all the messy hair and everything, and the smoking TARDIS,
it makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, this regeneration has literally just been hell for maybe 2 minutes before they crash land. 2 minutes of hell and just crashing around.
Well, they didn't know how to fly the TARDIS, so the best thing I assumed was he just hit random controls and just hoped for the best, and he probably just went from place to place to place to place to place in that short period of time.
And picked up a dinosaur.
And then ended up in a dinosaur's throat.
Yeah, and the Doctor says, we were being chased by a dinosaur, but I think I gave it the slip. Comes out and says, you've got a dinosaur here too!
I liked that. Mm-hmm. The bit of humor at the beginning was good. I liked that. Some things are escaping me right now. I don't know why.
What, from the opening?
Yeah, from around the opening.
Well, the opening titles happen, and then it's the Doctor in the bedroom talking about, like...
Why do you have a room that's for sleeping? What's the point?
I love the interaction with him and Vastra. It's like I normally just have little micro naps during conversations, and I wake up to skip to my bed. Capaldi was so great with the comedy here. Like, I've seen him in the thick of it, but really, like, this is probably the funniest I've ever seen him. And I think one of my favourite funny moments is when he goes to the robot and thinks that he's the one who invited him and Clara to the restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Says, no, I'm wrong. I hate being wrong in public. Everyone forget that happened.
Well, I think the best comment, and one of the things that really made me feel like he was channeling a little bit of Joe Pertwee, was when he got up the second time and went to the door and went, "Door, that's not me," and then just closes it and walks to the window, and then it's like, "That's me."
Yeah.
It's just the facial expression he had when he opened the door and went, "Door, not me."
And just the look of sheer glee on his face when he goes to the window is beautiful.
I'm gonna need to borrow your pet.
I was talking to the horse.
This is genuinely a person who is a lifelong fan who is just having an absolute ball playing the role.
You can
and
tell.
Playing the role well.
You can tell he's having the time of his life doing it.
Let's not forget the last time Capaldi was on the show was in the universe, was in Torchwood, and he had the most depressing story.
I have not seen Children of Earth yet, so...
Oh, I won't spoil it, but
Okay.
He quite possibly has the most emotionally devastating arc ever in the Doctor Who canon. And
definitely.
And now he's actually been given some of the funnier moments.
People always go back to him playing... Is it Caecilius? Is that the name of his character?
Something, yes.
Yes, his character from the Virus One, people go back there and it's a good thing to go back and look at that, like it's a minor role and he's a bit happy. No, if you want to look at the impact that he's actually had on the Doctor Universe as a whole, not just the main series, just watch Children of Earth, because he's such a good performance for such a depressing character arc.
Yeah.
And just even watching the actor, just like you can compare all the sadness of the Doctor to the roles and the anger as well. That hopefully, I'm hoping that we'll see a lot more sadness and a lot more anger. We didn't really see a lot of it up until towards the end when he confronts the half-faced man in the floating
One
restaurant.
thing I'm kind of looking forward to, the way he's a long-term Doctor Who fan, so he's probably seen every single episode that's ever aired, and he knows each Doctor. So I think we might actually be able to see him properly bring some of them through into his character, more so than Tennant brought a bit of Davison in, or at least from the newer actors.
But I'm actually going to correct that. He's actually been a fan since he's been watching it since John Pertwee. He may be 55 years old, 56 actually now, I think. Yeah, he's been watching it since John Pertwee. I think he probably went back and watched probably what he could of William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, but a lot of that's still missing, and it was still missing back then. But it's still he's been watching it since pretty much the very beginning, and he's been around since before it was created.
He's had every single Doctor. He's probably watched every single thing. He can really bring them through properly.
Whereas Matt Smith did bring through a bit of Troughton, but he didn't bring through a bit of Troughton until he was further on when he started to actually watch the show, because he came in never watching the show before.
Yeah, so did Eccleston, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think Eccleston wasn't, even when he was a part of the show, he wasn't a big fan of it.
No, he wasn't.
But that's still not a prerequisite to be a fantastic Doctor.
No.
Of course, it can help. But I think what we've got here is a Doctor who's, while he does have many callbacks, as we were saying, like near the beginning, he seems very uniquely Capaldi. Like,
yeah, I feel like he is very uniquely Capaldi. Like, as I didn't see throughout the episode, like, I did see bits, tiny milliseconds of sparks, but it's just like, I just see Capaldi as the Doctor when I watch this.
Yeah, like, one of my favourite scenes in the episode is when he's using the broom analogy. And while, of course, it's obvious, hitting you over the head with sort of symbolism and stuff, the way he delivers it, like, I believe it or not, while I've not read I didn't read the leaked scripts before the episode, I've read it now that I've seen the episode, because I like to do that. The way he delivers it, compared to how it's written in the script, completely different. He's sort of giving it his own delivery and his own spin, and I love the way he holds himself in that scene. He puts awkward pauses between sentences and accentuates certain words, and it's really compelling to watch.
I haven't read the leaked scripts. Could I actually ask you could I get the leaked scripts off you actually after this podcast is finished?
They shouldn't be hard to find, but no problem, that's fine. I also need to watch that, the leaked pre-release version, now that I've got them, but I've not watched them.
But yeah, there was some stupid dialogue in this episode.
When did you take off your veil?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit, but that their scene in the restaurant, like, it's one of my favourite scenes in a very long time, so it is, because it's just really well written and just really well executed as far as performance and visual and
cinematography. It was shot very well.
Oh yeah, I like when Clara sits down at the table on her own. She looks around, sniffs for a moment, turns around, and there's just Capaldi, just sort of there, just with a blank expression.
Yeah.
It's really, and the two have such great chemistry, and people mistake the word chemistry as in romantic chemistry. No, they just work well together.
Yeah, they really do.
It smells everywhere.
Which isn't to which isn't to say that she didn't work well with Matt Smith. It's just I feel as though it works better now because Clara's actually getting a stronger character, or a character in general now.
She's dropping what Smith had sadly attached to her, and that is the Impossible Girl plotline.
Oh, thank God!
I think I said once Smith leaves, hopefully Clara too. I really hope that she would, and she seems to be would finally get the plot of the Impossible Girl dropped from her character, and she would from her character quotation marks, and she would just burst into an actual character.
I remember when Impossible Girl first popped up in the newspaper, I just thought that I thought I couldn't do it. I thought they were going to try to keep going with that, but thankfully it looks like they're not.
Just a little callback.
It's like how they would refer to Rose as Bad Wolf or the Big Bad Wolf or whatever, even if it wasn't part of the story anymore. It was more of a nickname callback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, because I thought that she would be able to develop more of a personality once the Impossible Girl thing was done at the end of Name of the Doctor. But then Day and Time came along, and there was no real changes there. But I've read a review from somebody who had never seen the show before, this was his first episode, and saying, I'm expected to hate Clara, that's what I've kind of gathered from the fandom, but I like Clara, and that's because he watched the episode where she was actually given a personality. It's a good place to start for Clara fans.
That's I think Smith was the main responsibility that was holding her back. That's not Matt Smith personally. It's just the writing for his Doctor's series, from let's say quote unquote Asylum to Time of Doctor. Yeah. It's the Impossible Story Girl was dropped in the Name of the Doctor, but then we had the Day of Doctor where suddenly she's a school teacher at Coal Hill with no indication whatsoever to why she became a teacher.
Yeah, I was talking to someone on the Rooster Teeth forums. They had a Doctor Who thread, and someone was trying to defend, she loves kids, so that's why she became a school teacher, something along those lines. I don't remember a single indication of her wanting to be a school teacher.
And I did enjoy her a little bit more in the Time of Doctor because I think she got the first tiny bit of character development in the episode, and that's mainly down to the fact that they gave her an actual family to... they gave her a grandmother and a father and her father's girlfriend and aunt. Yeah, I can't remember the two women what they were.
One was grandmother.
Well, there was another two women.
In Series 7, I always took it that we were never really meant to see Clara as a person, because in the Bells of St. John, the Doctor never asks her anything like about who she is as a person, other than what contributes towards this mystery that he's trying to solve. He only cared about Clara because she was different, not because she was a good or interesting person. So it was kind of like, okay, so I guess if the Doctor doesn't care who this person is as a person, then we shouldn't.
Yeah, because we're clinging to the main character, the Doctor in this case, and if he doesn't care, then why should we?
That was another problem that I had with... I keep hating that I'm going back because we're getting sidetracked, but that's another problem. It was very Doctor egocentric, so it was Series 7.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
While we're on the Smith and Clara thing, you may as well mention the scene that people don't seem to like, but I actually thought it was useful.
What scene?
The one where Matt's Doctor calls her.
Oh.
Yes. I liked it.
There are people that like it.
I loved it.
I think it was well shot, I think it was well written, but...
I mean, from a story perspective of putting it in, because it does really actually help Clara's character development. It really is important for her. If it wasn't in, then it would... she's
helps
gone.
clear up. It really helps clear up some of the stuff that was really nitpicky with the regeneration. I mean, I enjoyed
I even knew
the
who in
Capaldi's
general.
regeneration, but there's a lot that I do nitpick, and I'm glad that filled it in. And it doesn't feel shoehorned in. You think it's shoehorned in, don't you, Nano?
Thinking about it more, it doesn't really feel shoehorned. I just feel as though that they could have done without it.
I think the Clara disliking the idea of a changed man is sort of like that aspect. The narrative kind of has to like bend over backwards slightly to accommodate that, but it works in a way. But I'm glad that the Matt Smith scene was there as a resolution to the plot arc in this episode for Clara and for the new Doctor, as opposed to it just being there for fan service. It actually served a point.
The thing is, with one of the subplots of this episode is that Clara's getting used to the fact that her Doctor has changed, but she keeps... I'm trying to find the right words. I don't want to say complaining, but she's not exactly comfortable with the Doctor being a new man, but it's already been established that she's very much aware that she knows that he can regenerate.
It doesn't mean that she would particularly like each of the... I mean, look at Rose and Nine.
That's true.
When he regenerated, it was very...
Well, she didn't have any idea that he could regenerate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still.
But like for Rose, I understood it up until a point, but then like in the Christmas Invasion, she was talking like she took it personally. She seemed to be offended by the idea that he would change.
Up until the point where he can actually explain it, because she doesn't. She spends most of the time not knowing what has happened.
Yeah.
She just thinks that this man has disappeared and there's just a new person in his place. Not that he's the same man, but with a different face.
Yeah, you do kind of have to sort of work around the script to get to that conclusion for Christmas Invasion at least, but I see the logic. But bear in mind that because there have been huge gaps between the episodes recently, it was 2 stories ago that we had the 50th anniversary where Clara interacted with 3 different, very distinct Doctors.
Yeah.
So to have her be so adverse to a regeneration that early, that so close to that story, especially if you marathon them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Then it will just come across as
jarring.
A little bit forced.
It does feel a little bit forced that she's against the whole regeneration thing. I can understand why she doesn't like that Doctor. Everyone's like, hasn't she seen all of the incarnations of Doctor and the name Doctor? It's like, yes, she's seen all of... This is the thing, you have to think around this as well. It's like, she's seen all of the incarnations in the name of Doctor. Up until Matt Smith's incarnation, because up until that point in the story, there was no Doctor after that. He was going to be dead and gone forever.
Yeah.
Until they changed it in the time of the Doctor. So it's like, she wasn't aware of what Capaldi was going to look like.
Even though the 12th Doctor was in Day of the Doctor. But then again, that's just something I have a problem with the Moffat era altogether at this point.
Is continuity, yes, but it's like, so you can see why she doesn't really warm up to the 12th Doctor, because she's never seen his face before. It's completely the polar opposite of what Matt was. It's a lot older. It's the oldest, actually.
Yeah.
And Matt was the youngest.
See, I don't really think that Clara was out of line at all until
No, she wasn't.
until Vastra started to call her out on stuff with the veil scene. Completely unjustifiably, like calling Clara all of these things that she blatantly is not. And then it sort of comes back to what we were saying earlier about writers' priorities. Like, Matt Smith's Doctor didn't really care about who Clara was, so the audience don't. In that sense, Vastra was saying all of these things, so it's meant to be the audience members thinking, oh, so this is how we've been meant to be seeing Clara? I didn't see that at all.
I did not get that.
It confuses me as well that Vastra would call her a stranger. It's like, they might not have, but they've already been in 2 stories ago, the Crimson Horror. They seem to be connecting all right. They seem to be friendly with each other, and they didn't really talk together that much. Can't remember the name of the gang. Vastra, Jenny, Strax, and Clara. They didn't interact together. Yeah, thank you. They didn't seem to interact together that much in the name of the Doctor, but they still were friendly with each other and seemed, they just talked to her. But now in this scene, it's like, this is the first time Vastra has ever met Jenny when they're doing the veil scene, and it completely just goes back on it.
But it's I think it's mainly meant to be aimed at viewers of the show, which kind of makes sense, but it comes at the expense of Clara. It kind of calls her out on stuff that she didn't do.
It's a risk the writers pull in hoping that they can execute it well, but in this case it was just executed poorly.
It was mean-spirited.
But it's one of those things that it's so hard to explain why it doesn't work, but it just doesn't work.
It's probably one of those things where if you think about it too much, you hurt yourself, but if you just kind of watch it, don't think and feel, then you kind of get it.
Yeah, but even just that, like, I watched this episode with my girlfriend, and during that scene, she just turned to me and said, I have no idea what they're arguing about. And I said, neither do I. And then that was because all the thought we gave to that scene.
All the thought I gave to that scene. Well, all the thought I gave that scene was about not say just before and just after, like I did the cut back to Capaldi. I was gone. I just phased out because literally it just didn't keep my interest at all. Because it's just like, cause what is actually going on here?
Yeah.
And then with the veil removes, I just went. It's the same way with the bucket scene. Actually, it's like, where did it go? Where did the veil go? And where did the bucket go? Because it's literally instantaneous.
It feels like one of those things where writers are trying to put a lampshade on the stupid thing they're doing because of a fuck up or whatever, but they don't. They don't really, hang a proper lampshade. It's just, oh well, you took your veil off. No, you just stopped seeing it. Okay.
No, because what really kills that scene for me is because obviously she took off the veil during that transition when Capaldi's doing the chalk and whatever.
Yeah.
But where that scene ends and then the scene continues after that, there's been no change in the conversation or the dynamic. So she took the veil off while they were still arguing.
And like Clara's looking directly at her as well.
Yeah, and she says, okay, when did you take the veil off? When you stopped seeing it. But she took the veil off when they were still arguing.
And giving each other direct eye contact as well.
And it doesn't work. It doesn't.
It would work if like Clara turned away for a second, and then after the arguments, like after she said, when you've stopped seeing it, they did a sort of like Sherlock-y sort of cool flashback where it shows you Vastra taking off the veil in a smooth sort of transition. Or someone did say this online, if there's it's ridiculous though, perception filter on a veil, but it's like, if there was a perception filter or something that made the veil invisible or something, it didn't get the dialogue's horrible anyway, but it didn't get explained.
I just think that it was just poor writing. It's not just there's like a perception filter or something, because she's actually taking a veil off in many scenes.
Yeah.
She's actually taking something off, either that or she's miming an invisible veil. It's just them trying to cover up the scene because it sounds
not tiny as well.
smart.
Like she has the entire thing off, and it's not a tiny veil we've seen in the opening scene. It's a big, massive veil with.
Well, Vastra's very first scene in A Good Man Goes to War is her, like, after she's killed Jack the Ripper, and she takes the veil off. Are you saying that was a perception filter veil for Clara, who she has never met?
Yeah, it's like, people are just making up these random excuses for it. It's like, no, it's just poor writing at the end of the day. Why can't people see that? It's like, just because it's Doctor Who doesn't mean it has some bizarre, out-of-this-world reasoning behind it. It might, it could, because I mean the show has done it before, but at this stage it's just blatantly poorly executed writing.
A lot of fans don't see it like that though. There are those fans, the fandom, D-U-M-B, that sees everything as symbolic or completely incorruptible, but we'll get to that at another point. Yeah,
well it's basically just like, you have these people who say you either love all of it or you hate all of it. There's no I like this, dislike this. It's the extremes, which I'm assuming is just a small but vocal minority.
Yeah, I would hope so too.
The thing I've seen the most is there is no middle ground with Doctor Who fans. There really isn't a middle... For a lot of them, there isn't a middle ground. It's either their way or the wrong way.
Yeah, like, I saw this thing on one of the Doctor Who Facebook pages that I follow, saying that one of the admins posted an article on a website giving reasons for why he personally does not like the 10th Doctor. And people in the comments were all going off on him, saying, well, you don't like the 10th Doctor. Isn't that the same thing as hating Doctor Who? No, it's not.
That's like me saying I don't like... just to say what... I don't know if there's a Doctor I actually hate. Probably, even though my favourite stories in his series, Patrick Troy's is probably the one I would least like. But it's not. It doesn't mean that I hate the entire show.
No.
It just means that I don't like his portrayal as the Doctor that much.
And that's a personal thing. That's an opinion. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, no, apparently we're not.
It's the internet.
It's everybody. Have you ever actually had an argument in real life with someone who adores David Tennant and sees no flaws in him because he's David Tennant?
Yes.
But she should know what I mean then.
I think for the sake of the sanity in the conversation, let's move on to something we liked in the episode.
Yeah, well, we covered, like, I think with this, we're not actually reviewing the entire episode, it's not even reviewing
We're
it,
just
covering, like,
we're going around.
covering the key points. So we've done the opening and the title sequence, the veil scene. What would be... Yeah, the restaurant
Sorry,
scene,
just
but
thought
I
the veil
think
scene.
the restaurant scene would be one of the bigger key points, but I think the middle-y key point was the scene where Clara holds her breath.
I liked that scene. It was it was very suspenseful.
It was very suspenseful up until right from the point where the Doctor's just like, "See you later," and the door closes. Because you genuinely think, wow, the way Capaldi gave it across and performed, it's like, wow, he actually genuinely is leaving her behind.
Well, because he winds up coming back inside that, disguised as the robot, people have been thinking that once he leaves, he goes into his TARDIS, goes back in time, disguises himself as the robot, and he's been in that room the entire time. Which I don't know if that's actually meant to be it, but it's what people are thinking.
I've seen, like, the way she manages to make it to a second quarter.
Yeah.
At the end of that quarter, there is that there bald with the sort of butler outfit that Capaldi's wearing. At the very end of that quarter, like, you see him pop out. He's actually one of the people who takes you back into the room.
Oh, okay.
So obviously he went ahead when he closed the door, and there's plenty of plausible time for him to actually get into that outfit.
Yeah, that's how I perceived it.
Yeah, that's why I got it on my second time around, because I was like, how did he get into that costume in that room? And then I got it the second time around, because I was like, oh, there's that bald butler dude that Capaldi was dressed up in.
Unfortunately, that's where the BBC One stream for me was cutting out a little bit, so I missed a lot of that scene.
Oh, that
I need to
sucks.
dress up in that scene as well. People are saying that the mask that Capaldi was wearing when he starts to peel it off looks like Matt Smith's face. Has anybody seen this?
I see the resemblance.
I see the resemblance, but it's horrible looking. I feel really bad for Matt Smith.
I kind of thought, well, maybe they're kind of referring to Matt Smith, but I just kind of shrugged it off.
I don't think that was the intention behind it. It was obviously whatever way he peeled the mask off, but it's just like, I see it, but I don't really. Poor Matt Smith, though.
Yeah, I don't know if it was deliberate.
That face is horrible looking when it's getting peeled off, and it's like,
because it's skin.
Like Matt Smith has got a weird face, but he's not got that weird of a face.
Oh god.
He's got no chin and big eye, and he's reverse. He's got a big chin and no eyebrows, so I'd say that's pretty weird.
No, they're just delicate.
Going back to everything seems to be revolving back to Clara, but I think the holding her breath scene was really good for Clara.
Well, Jenna Coleman has completely sold that scene. She did so well there.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
I was terrified for her.
Yeah, I was terrified because it was the first time the half-faced man legitimately looked terrifying. What's the name of the actor? He's Peter
Ferdinando.
Ferdinando, yeah. He genuinely looks like a robot, but he just looks so emotionlessly terrifying. I don't know if that's a word, but I'll stick with it.
Well, because when he's looking Clara up and down, when she's holding her breath, you can't read his face. You can't tell if he's onto her or not, and that makes it even more tense.
And it's the fight then is like it's going to close-ups of Jenna Louise Coleman's face, but it's going to her nose and her mouth where she's not breathing out of it, and her eyes as well. And then it's going back to his face that nobody can read, and it's like she doesn't know, and we don't know either if he's onto her or not. And you get pulled in by that. And
it's so well filmed. Especially when she leaves the room, turns the corner, and there's the whole corridor full of robots. So, and it's like it was difficult enough to hold your breath for that long, but she's not even close to out of the woods yet, and your heart just sinks for her at that moment. And it's such a well.
It sank for me when he turned. It sank for me when the half-faced man turned right, and then she starts to cry, because you don't know if it's a cry of fear or if it's a cry of relief that he hasn't found her out, or again, if it's a cry of fear because she's terrified.
But I think that's because you get so many characters who just are so brazenly confident in situations like that. But I think because true bravery stems from doing something even though you're afraid. And that scene alone, when she's talking to the half-faced man, negotiating her life, and she openly admits she is freaking terrified, really give me a lot of respect for the character. And although when she's unconscious, it goes to the flashback of her school, like her as a teacher, that happens to be convenient for her 2 minutes later. I think that they needed to re-edit that a little bit so that she flashbacks to that classroom, then she does the thing, rather than it being a big gap, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was a good flashback, though. It was I find it very relatable anyway, because the school I went to, there was so many, like, I think in any secondary school you go to, there's always that one student who will try and bully that one teacher. Oh, yeah. And by saying, like, if you, like the teacher will say, I'm going to suspend you, I'll give you detention, then there's like one student who will try and call her bluff by going, go on then, do it. And I thought that was really relatable, because it's like, yeah, that actually does happen in schools.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. It's just mainly the fact that she has that, she's unconscious, she has that flashback, then a minute later, that flashback becomes useful. It just seemed incredibly convenient, but I just think if she had flashbacked when she was negotiating, then it would have felt more natural. I can't fault her logic when she says, well, you can't just threaten to kill somebody straight away, you have nowhere to go. I can't fault that logic.
You either kill them and you don't get the information, or you let them live and you basically
torture.
Go back on your promise. You basically there's nothing, because like, oh wow, you're going to torture me. You threatened to kill me.
yeah.
And here we are.
But Peter Ferdinando and Jenna Coleman were just terrific in that scene. She was so great in this episode. They both were.
Jenna Coleman got some good material to work with, to be fair, so...
Yeah, especially in the restaurant scene, when they realise that neither of them sent the invitation. And then she's like, wait a minute, you go maniac? What? Because they've actually been insulting each other subconsciously throughout the whole scene.
Do you have a children's menu? I love that line.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant scene, the restaurant scene, and it could have fallen apart so bad, because it's a really long and very dialogue-heavy scene, but it just works.
And it's in the one place as well, so you're limited to the amount of ways you can show Clara or the Doctor or the other people sitting in the restaurant. You're limited to the amount of space you can see in the room.
I'm sure this was a deliberate thing in the restaurant that I wasn't personally a fan of, like how the booth that the Doctor and Clara were in was brightly lit and well done, whereas the rest of the restaurant was like all cold and dark. I'm sure it was meant to be like that, but for me it just made it seem like they were on two completely different sets. It seemed like they were maybe on a green screen or something.
I think it was meant to be like that because, as they figured out, the invitation was a setup.
Like, yeah, they technically were in something else, like they were in an elevator, but it seemed... It obviously was meant to be a little bit symbolic, but it felt it was too symbolic.
Yeah, it became so symbolic it actually looked like a production error.
Kind of like the bucket.
Yeah, I think the bucket disappeared because that prop that Strax uses to analyze Clara was made by a fan who won a competition, and you had to design a prop, and then that prop winds up in the episode. So I think that they thought, oh, we actually have to film this scene now with the thing, let's just find somewhere to include it, and they forgot the bucket.
Yeah, people were comparing the bucket and the veil here. It's like, you cannot compare them. The veil disappearing is just bad writing.
Oh yeah,
the bucket, yeah. It's just an accidental continuity error. It happens all the time. It's like, it's a little bit more, because we noticed it, because it's a big object, and it's because the focus of that little scene. For a little bit of that.
Yeah, it was more or less in the center of the frame.
It's like a little production error is forgivable every now and again. Because that stuff happens.
Like, it is a nitpick. Make no qualms about that. That is just a nitpick, but it is a.
But like anybody who makes films, you just have to go, okay, yeah, it's alright. It's not the worst thing in the world that you just accidentally made a continuity error.
Oh yeah,
it happens.
One that was very noticeable even to people that don't look for that. But don't you know, the bucket is a TARDIS.
But it did just seem like then they just went, right, let's get this BBC Blue, let's get this Blue Peter prop in the scene.
Yeah.
They were pretty cool, the Sonic Gauntlet, the Sonic magnifying glass of scanning, and I think it's like a Sonic, it's like a Sonic wand or something, like Vastra used to do the car lock on her thing. Yeah, they were all really nicely designed, but they'd all, apart from maybe Vastra's, all of them seemed a little bit crammed in for no reason.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because they all looked really good. Well done to the children that did that, but it's like...
They're there for the sake of being there, and nothing really
They
more.
were there for the sake of the competition, basically.
Yeah.
It was one of the props the weird thing that Vastra has at the beginning that she uses to contain the dinosaur?
No, it's like a little wand sort of thing that she uses to lock the door of the carriage.
Okay, because I thought like, if that was one of the props, then that would have been that would have been a really good way to actually get that into the plot somehow.
Because I wasn't aware of what they were, but I think it was Friday night before the episode when I was like, oh yeah, that's right, they did a Blue Peter cop. So I quickly looked up what these props were, just so I could know what they were to look out for them. Like, and apart from Vastra's, because it was just for a little modern technology in Victorian times, click click, carriage door closes. The rest of them just seemed crammed in. Like Strax is seen just no reason. It's just like, oh, I'm going to give you a medical examination.
Yeah.
What reason? She
seems
she's fine.
Strax.
Yeah, the plot just stops dead though at that scene. Like it just like, okay, let's do this quirky scene which doesn't add up to anything. How can we at least agree, even though many people are a bit mixed on Strax in this episode, can we at least agree that him throwing the newspaper was friggin' funny?
Yes.
Yeah, it was
That
great.
was a good bit of
I
slapstick.
bust out laughing.
There is GIFs everywhere of it online, and every time it just gets more and more funny. Especially when the GIF is on loop. Like if you watch that, they're like just the impact of it hitting Clara on loop. It just gets funnier and funnier and funnier.
Yeah, that newspaper really must have just been hurtling at some speed.
It reminds me of the inanimate carbon rod from The Simpsons that got Employee of the Month or whatever and made it on Time Magazine for saving Homer and the other astronauts.
I think a nice little scene when Clara is passing, or a nice little addition for the scene when Clara's passing Jenny on the staircase is she just has a red mark on her forehead, and Jenny just asks what happened, and Clara just dismisses it. It's like, oh, just Strax.
But I'm just imagining that gif of Clara getting hit and just falling over. You can, like, if somebody makes a really stupid argument defending or critiquing an episode, just do that. Just get the newspaper out. Oh, the dinosaur was too big.
Get the newspaper out.
Apart from Vastra's, they just all seemed utterly pointless, and you know what, it'd be cool, but I bet you the kids watched that went, what was the point? I know they're like from 8 to 12, like the people who designed it, but I bet you they just saw it like, oh yeah, it's really cool.
Well, we need to prepare them for the disappointments that life will give them, jeez.
Yeah, but they just watch it and go, what's the point? If I was 8 and saw my Sonic Gauntlet on the screen for 5 seconds and it's gone, I'd be like, yeah, it looks cool. But why did I draw this again?
Yeah, but then again, the last time there was a big noteworthy competition for them to contribute to the episode, we got Love and Monsters.
Yeah.
So maybe it's for the best that it's just a minimal impact.
Hey, look, blowjob jokes.
Ha! Elton is literally pounding the pavement every night. No matter how many times I tell that joke, people still laugh.
That would be really painful, because I know it's a face, like people make blowjob jokes and all that, I know it's a face, but it doesn't have a throat, it's just a concrete slab, so surely if he did put something in it, it would just be him hitting against the concrete. It'd be literally that noise, it would just be...
How can I unsee the image?
People have always said that to me, and I'm just like, yeah, you look at it that way, but look at it the other way. There's no throat to that. It's just a smooth face on a solid concrete slab.
That would be such like a great prank on people.
This just makes Love and Monsters more and more disturbing.
Ah.
And then people say it can't get as more disturbing as Peter Kay being in a giant green costume wearing a thong.
Oh!
I don't want to be on the podcast anymore.
I think I want to leave as well. I think I need a shower, actually.
One of my bigger problems with the episode is that I feel as though it dragged a bit.
Yeah, I think it was good to get another 73-minute episode.
Something like that.
Something like that, but it's like, it could have been done in our...
Yeah. I think, because that scene with Strax giving Clara the medical exam...
What was the point?
Yeah, that's apart from getting the prop in, that's a dead scene. That's just 2 minutes
You
of
could
nothing.
have shaved 13, 15 minutes off the episode easily.
Yeah, the 11th hour was 60 minutes,
And it
that was a
works.
really good length for it. Whereas it does feel like there's a bit of padding.
It just seemed like they thought, oh, Day of the Doctor, that was this amount of time we put it in cinemas. I wonder if we could do that with the Series 8 opener.
Yeah.
This kind of makes me think of what the BBC America rebroadcast edit's gonna be like for Deep Breath, because the extended episode
90 minutes long, because of all the bloody adverts you'll be getting.
No, adverts aside, like what they do, BBC America, they take the longer episodes like Christmas specials, what have you, and they shrink it down to fit within 60 minutes with ads. So
That's actually going to be really interesting to watch, because it'd be interesting. I would actually very much like to watch it, actually, because it would be interesting to see what they cut
exactly,
out.
that's why I want to see it.
And to see if it would work then, same way.
Which I don't normally watch the cut down episodes on BBC America because they do cut out some good stuff. I refuse to watch the 11th hour when they rebroadcast it because they cut out great stuff. And for the first broadcast, they edited 11th hour, so they cut out the Pandorica will open scene, and people were confused at the end.
It'd be great if the BBC America rebroadcast of it actually did cut out the Strax scene and cut out the Veil scene. That would
I
be
would love
absolute
that.
Gold.
Oh, yes, please. But
People who have to cut these episodes down for BBC America just looked at those two things and went,
We don't need
"What
these.
is the fucking point of this? Can we cut this out?"
but did you say that they cut out the end of the Pandorica opens?
No, what they did was at the 11th hour. Remember when Prisoner Zero said silence will fall when the Pandorica will open?
Okay.
Yeah, they
yeah.
cut out that. So when
okay.
when that was shown in flashback and Pandorica opens, Big Bang, whichever, a lot of people were really confused.
Okay, because I thought you were saying that they cut out the cliffhanger for the Pandorica opens and the Big
No.
Bang. I was like, that's the key scene.
No, they only cut stuff from episodes if they're usually extended episodes, like Christmas specials.
Yeah.
And it's not often that they'll broadcast the whole thing, which is one of the reasons why I don't really watch Doctor Who on BBC America.
Nobody blames you.
Yeah, especially because Doctor Who, as we know, is not a show that was made to have adverts cut in at random intervals. BBC America obviously does that because that's how American TV works. So I honestly cannot watch the BBC America.
I'm really
first
surprised that's how
broadcasts.
it works, especially because it's on BBC America. I think because it's BBC America, it's a BBC channel essentially. You think they would follow the same format?
It's because they don't. Americans don't have the license fee.
No, we don't. It's a cable channel. It comes with
Since
cable.
we've got the TV license fee, we get adverts on. We don't get adverts on BBC. Well, except for 3 and 4.
Oh, well, I like listening sometimes to BBC America because it's narrated mostly by Mark Sheppard, and he's got a lovely voice.
BBC America does their damnedest to sound and be as British as possible, which is why most of what they show is Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Anyway, back to Deep Breath. Let's talk about
Oh yeah,
the...
we were here to talk about that, weren't we?
Yeah, let's talk about the
Ah.
heaven scene.
Forgot why we were here.
Yeah, I'm actually genuinely interested in knowing how that turns out.
Because apparently that woman was the woman in the shop.
yes,
Or so we're led to believe.
and-
Missy, the woman in the shop, really?
Yes, played by Michelle Gomez. And what's interesting is that if it wasn't for Stephen Moffat completely cocking up most of the series arcs in series 7 and 6, I'd be excited for where this is going.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. A lot of people are already assuming that she's River Song because she called the Doctor her boyfriend, I think it was.
If they do that, I will literally facepalm my wall.
Please, no. I think we've had enough of River Song. I think she's done.
Wasn't it said though that every single plot element in this series will be done and dusted by episode 12?
Yeah, apparently everything that happens in Series 8 as far as major plot goes, for Series 8 will be done and dusted in Series 8. Like, they won't touch it on Series 9, because Moffat already said he has worked out how Series 9 is going to plan out and how Series 9 will end. So it seems to me he's just doing...
Moffat is planning ahead?
Dun dun dun!
He's ready to get the finale for Series 9 sorted out, apparently. He said in an interview.
Are you sure this
Well,
is Stephen Moffat?
Yeah, he said in an interview.
Keep in mind that Moffat said that everything from the Matt Smith era would be resolved in the time of the Doctor, which did not happen.
Why are there no ducks in that duck pond, Moffat?
Yeah!
Before we go to the restaurant scene, is to get touched on a little bit more about the fact that it's Clockwork Droids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to take that.
That was an interesting callback.
That was actually an original rumor when the first episode was getting filmed. Actually, people were like, the Clockwork Droid's going to be the first villain in thing. And I read that, and I was like, dismissed it, because everyone else was dismissing it, and within a week or a month or so, actually, after that news came out, it died. People were just like, yeah, it's a ridiculous statement, and let's just move on. It's probably something, because I think it's because the dinosaurs got announced for that episode, or people found out there was dinosaurs in that episode. But I legitimately liked it. It's kind of like what they did with the Autons in the Pandoric Opens, but on a bigger scale, because they don't really touch that much in that episode. But I thought it was a nice callback.
It was a nice callback, but not really too much more.
It just makes me think if they never mentioned that it was the SS Marie Antoinette, was that the one?
Yeah.
If they never mentioned that, would we be still making the connection? Would we be criticizing it instead of praising the continuity?
I think you'd be making the same like connection that Capaldi's Doctor was. Where have I seen this before? And sort of brushing it off at the same time, but it's kind of like you wouldn't have thought of it because it, like they're saying, they're basically, there's nothing left of the original robot basically. So it's one of those, you would have sort of linked them together, but you'd have been like, yeah, they're not actually linked.
Like, that was actually a nice little thing, by the way, like the fact that he kept referring to. I like that we got the face thing out of the road as well. I've seen this face before, but I'm not sure where. It's nice that wasn't a big deal, and it's nice that it's just gone inside the road, and hopefully they'll never go back to why he looks like the guy from Pompeii and the guy from Children of Earth, who he never met. But I like the fact that he kept saying, I've seen this and I've heard this before, but I don't know where. Because it's sort of like, because everything that was done was sort of done for the fan as well, because all the stuff that he didn't know but it seemed before, we were kind of like, I've seen that before as well, but I'm not sure where I've seen it or heard it from before.
See, me being a bit of a pessimistic person kind of made it. I thought it seemed like Moffat was halfway through writing this and thought, yeah, Clockwork or like these weird robots that use human organs as skin or whatever. Wait a minute, this seems very familiar. Oh, okay, I'll just mention that.
That's one of the possibilities, or the other possibility is that he actually did, because he is a good writer. Like, that's one of the possibilities. He is a lazy writer at times, but it's like, so it could have been we made that connection halfway through and just decided to throw in the Clockwork Droids, or he hit a good writer stroke at that time and went, it's really cool, I've got this idea that the Clockwork Droids, rather than using organs to just repair their ships, they use it to repair themselves as well. And it's like, we don't know, because we're not the man himself. We will never know what the thought process behind bringing back the Clockwork Droids were.
I'm personally more inclined to be negative about it because Steve Moffat has been ripping off himself so much recently.
His reputation of writing at the moment is just so lazy, and he just
plot holes are things that aren't meant to be explained.
And it just seems like, okay, people keep calling me out for ripping off myself. If I mention I'm ripping off myself, then it becomes full circle and it becomes brilliant.
No.
That seems more like the approach. Like, have you seen The Bells of St. John recently?
Not recently.
God, does he rip off everything he has ever done in that story, including some Rusty Davis stuff. It's basically note for note, scene for scene, The Idiot's Lantern.
But, oh my god, you're right.
And he pretty much, he does all the whole, this scene was actually one thing, but no, it was another. It's the whole misdirection thing. He's basically just ripping off all of his own points and his own beats, which makes the Bells of St. John
pushing it together.
Yeah, which makes the Bells of St. John just seem like the plagiarism of St. Moffat. But
Moffat a saint? No.
But and like with Strax here, where he's not coming up with new material, it's the same jokes that he's been saying since A Good Man Goes to War.
And the people who just praise Strax will just go, "Ha, that's funny, Strax," and they won't see that this is just a repetitive character. They'll see that he's a comic relief.
Yeah, like when he does the melt him with acid joke. Like it just made me think, Strax, you have been with the Doctor on television for 3 years. Either kill him or don't kill him. Should we talk about the kiss?
There's not really much to talk about.
Okay.
I think we covered
People complained that it happened. Nobody really cares.
People complained. There were people that didn't care. It's under the guise of being progressive. It's not. Let's move on.
It's progressive as far as the TV standpoints go, but again, completely unnecessary. I mean, because they hammered home in that episode. That's all Vastra and Jenny seem to do. And again, it's great. It's progressive. It's good for kids to see as well, because it gives kids, I think it opens up kids' minds to acceptance, and they should be more accepting of people. But it's like, the only thing Vastra and Jenny seem to do in scenes together was
Flirt.
hammer home that they're a same-sex couple.
Yeah.
Constantly in scenes. It's nice because it's the first time that we've actually seen them, I think it's the first time we've seen them two together sort of,
Interacting.
showing how much they legitimately love each other. They do these two guys legitimately love each other no matter what. But they really did hammer home the fact that they were same. It's like someone coming up to you for the first time you've ever met them, like just introduce yourself, going, "Hi, I'm such and I'm gay," and then doing it every time you see them. They just have a conversation and then end the conversation with, "Oh, by the way, I'm gay." It's like, we get the point. I don't have a problem with it. All you need to do is end the sentence with, "What do you think?" ? Or do you want to go get a cup of coffee, or do you want to play Grand Theft Auto or something? It's like, you don't need to go. Do you want to go for a coffee? I'm gay, by the way. It's like, we're fine. Yeah. We're fine with it.
It becomes a big cry for attention, because true equality comes from if they were to treat the relationship as just a matter of fact.
Normal.
It's just
what it is normal.
Do. Yeah, it is normal.
If treat it normal because it is normal.
Yeah, and if you're legally allowed to marry somebody of the same sex, you should be able to show them kiss before the watershed. That's absolutely fine. But then when they announce it every 5 seconds, it just comes across as Stephen Moffat standing on a soapbox going, "I'm totally fine with same-sex stuff. We are amazingly good. We're fine. We're good." It just becomes more pandering than anything.
It calls more attention to it than it needs.
And people like us are sitting there going, "We know you're fine with it." It's like, and you want to know how we know you're fine with it? Because in the past you've done it where it's just, it's just normal.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't need to hammer home the fact that, the more you hammer home the fact that they're a same-sex couple, the more you're making us think that, right, is there a problem with it?
Is there something special about it?
Yeah, it becomes something that they draw attention to, so they make it seem like it's an exception. They make it seem like it's something that should be singled out. I personally have a problem with the kiss because I don't think it worked within the episode.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's okay to complain about it for a critical standpoint of view because it's completely necessary, but as far as the fact that it's,
what
it'll affect children's behavior.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I mean, if it doesn't affect the child at all, then the parents have no right to complain about it.
But it's kind of interesting that it's Doctor Who of all programs that brings forward this discussion into the mainstream. I didn't expect that to be the talking point after Deep Breath was broadcast.
And then it makes me go, Strax is the third wheel. Now we need to find Strax some love. Maybe the horse that pulls their carriage.
Oh god.
Wouldn't that be great in episodes? Like, that would give Strax some good character development. Give Strax some love.
There's probably porn of it already.
I mean legitimate love. I don't mean...
Alright, well, fine. Well, let's get Sarah Jessica Parker in an episode, and we'll have Strax be...
I thought that was who was pulling the cart.
No, that was...
Oh!
That was Celine Dion.
That'd be actually interesting, though, if Strax could feel affection towards another life form like that.
Who knows?
Although I think with Strax, it would be more if he needs a dog or a cat.
I'm trying to imagine Strax with a cat now.
He wouldn't get along with it at the start, but I think that would be, if they had their own series, and that, I think that should be the pilot, they get a cat at the start of their pilot or something,
God.
just have like that. And Strax hates it, but at the very end, he loves it. He loves the kitty.
I imagine he gets a pet cat. Then the next scene, somebody walks in and finds that the cat's just been melted with acid. And Strax is like,
someone walks into the.
It spoke poorly of the glorious
smells.
Sontaran Empire.
Something smells good, or like Vastra and Daddy come back in from a day of detective work. I'm like, "Oh, Strax, dinner smells good. What is it? The cat, Mom. I marinated the cat."
If there were a spin-off, I'm imagining this as a 4-camera sitcom, where that's on a stage with an audience.
Oh yeah, Vastra comes in like, "Jenny, I'm home." Woo!
Yeah,
and actual audience applauding.
I would actually buy tickets.
I would
Yeah.
watch it. If it was at least a one-off. I don't know how long it actually lasts.
18 seasons.
Oh god damn it!
It would actually outlive Doctor Who.
The restaurant scene though, that's what we were talking about in the first place. I really liked that it was I think if they had, the fact that it had to mention the Marie Antoinette is the sister spaceship. Don't think it was entirely necessary. I think it was. I think I caught on. I would have caught on from the other robots with the knife arms and the way they moved that they were clockwork droids. I would have assumed they were, and I would have made the connection. But it's like, oh, only one can wonder. But it's like they just had that. It feels like they just added in the fact that it has a sister ship just for the sake of making sure we got that these were clockwork droids. I liked that I loved the clockwork droids the first time, right? I thought they were brilliant enemies. but it's like, the reason, it's like, it's great that you have them in, but it's like the reasoning, you explained why they were there a bit too much. It would have been nice if they were just, damaged robots who just, just were on alert, constantly repairing themselves because they don't know better.
I think the idea of a robot wanting to be human by literally trying to transform itself is fascinating, and I'm so glad that the half-faced man has survived the story to see if that carries on. Plus, I think Peter Ferdinando is too great of an actor to lose.
No, it'd be nice to see him, later on, because it's assumed that we're going to see him later on, I would think, at this stage.
Yeah. Well, that would be interesting if, at the end of every episode, Missy picks up all of the defeated villains and they form, a League of Evil or something.
We don't need another Alliance C sort of episode, though. We've had that in the Pandora Opens and we've had that in the Time with the Doctor.
And then Sony's going to be like, hey, we're using this for our Sinister Six movie.
Well, they've ripped everything else off.
But Moffat said that every episode is pretty much going to be standalone. He said 95% of every episode is going to be pretty much standalone.
With the last 5% overarching a plot.
Which is standard, pretty much, for Doctor Who. I mean, pretty much every series did it that way.
Definitely, very Russell T Davies.
Yeah, very Russell T Davies, the way it was. Not necessarily every episode had a callback, but I mean, there's pretty much Bad Wolf in every episode of Series 1, in slight ways. There was big ways with someone spraying Bad Wolf on the side of TARDIS, and then there was really kind of low-key ways by, I think in the long game, they had a TV station called Bad Wolf TV.
I didn't notice that.
But the concept of heaven is interesting.
Yeah,
Promised
although
land.
it's awfully rainy in heaven. That was good. No, but you're not in heaven. You're just in the countryside of Britain, just rainy as hell.
It looks awfully rainy. It looks awfully rainy in heaven, or it just looks like a miserable garden centre in Wales.
It might just be in Florida because it's always fucking raining here.
But because of Moffat's track record with these arcs, I'm not gonna get myself hyped. I am interested.
That's me. This is the first time in a long while I've left the series opener going, oh, I can't wait for what's next or what this is leading into. I mean, I think the last time I was left like that was sort of in the 11th hour, because I was like, oh, okay, there might be something with this Silas Wolfall thing. But it's with this one's okay, there's a little bit more meat to the bone. So it's what is this? Especially because I know all the episode titles, so I know I don't know what it's leading into, but you get a hint if you know the finale title of what it's leading into.
And it's interesting to know, for the audience to know that this is happening behind the scenes, and the Doctor and the Companion are completely unaware. Because for Silence Will Fall, that was just explicitly said to the Doctor, and he had to put the pieces together. So it kind of makes the audience feel ahead of the Doctor, which is great for tension, and good for letting the audience in on something.
It's good that we're seeing Missy anyway, because a tiny bit before, because we know she's going to be in the finale because of the promo picture of her and the Cybermen walking about the streets. But it's good that we're not giving too much away, but we know a little bit about her behaviour before we get through, because I think the worst thing you can do is just make this character seem so big and then just throw her straight in to the deep end of the finale. I always like that they give them, they give the audience, just the audience, I think it's good that they kept it away again from, the Companion Doctor. They give the audience just a little bit of sense of what her behaviour's like. Not necessarily what her character's about, but what her behaviour's like. I mean, you do get very much the vibe of a very strong evil character, the way she just, at the very end, twirls her umbrella and, sort of dances around that fountain in the garden.
Because of how Moffat's written female characters recently, I'm hoping that we don't get just a repeat of the River Song sociopath.
I'm hoping she's a new character. I'm hoping she's someone that the Doctor actually does know, but she knows a lot about the Doctor. I'm just hoping people are oh, it could be River Song or the Rana. It's no, I just hope she's her own character. I mean, her character title for the finale sounds really intriguing.
Or at least just be a different personality-wise, not just feisty. Because apparently feisty is a personality trait.
Not a River Song from Let's Kill Hitler that was just evil.
Just somebody completely unique and her own.
We just skip past it, but do you think he was pushed? Do you think he fell? Half-faced man?
I think he pushed.
I think he was pushed too.
Because I think if there was anything that was going to make the half-faced man already kill himself, he probably would have already done it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a consequence that pops up in the finale.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's definitely a difficult thing to think about, because the Doctor as shown in his past, is not above killing, even though he really obviously would rather not. But at the same time, who knows? It's left ambiguous for a reason, so...
I think it's interesting that the Doctor, if he did push him, he would have pushed him to save his friends. He's not saving the world or saving London. he does it to save his friends who are
Yeah.
fighting in the spaceship, which sort of makes it feel a lot more personal to him, which means that he may be willing to go that far.
I wonder what happened. Did the actual body of the half-faced man go to heaven, or is it just the spirit, if he does have a spirit, because he's more a machine? Because it's like, who's going to scrape a body off the very, very top of Big Ben?
Someone would do it.
We need a very big pole and a very big ladder.
Use the skin balloon. Like, how grim was that? When he's like, how do you get it to fly? Skin. Then it's a balloon.
And then it's
That
like,
was
that's
kind of
grim.
disgusting.
That is
really
grim.
fleshy balloon. But yeah, I think he pushed him because I think it'll be good to have that sort of dark secret throughout the entire series that then Clara finds out about or something in the finale, and it's just like, right, why did you do that? But rather than see Missy at the end of, like, say, every episode or so, it'd be nice if we got a little bit more of a hint towards did he do it or not. And then, like, say the penultimate episode or the one before that, before the penultimate episode, we find out what he did. Like, it's a sort of end scene, but we just see it, through a flashback through the Doctor's mind. And it's sort of, it's pushing his character's decisions in a certain direction. I don't want him to be really dark and a killer. I don't want that to be seen as thing, because that's never who he is, and I don't want him to become that, because that just ruins the character in general. But it'd be nice if it just slowly revealed to the audience what he did, and it sort of, actually impacts the Doctor's behavior, like he regrets it or something.
I'm not sure if I definitely want to know if he did it, but I want to know over the course of the series if he is definitely capable of it. Because he's the line he said to the robot was like, one of us is lying about our basic programming, and even if we don't know if he did it or not, was he lying or not? I think that would make things more, just give the audience more to work with, as opposed to it just being, yeah, he killed him, he's a murderer.
So yeah, I was on the edge of my seat because I didn't want to find out when I saw that he was on top of Big Ben. But then when Missy asked, did he push you or did you fall, I was like,
yeah,
and
I'm
then
so
obviously
glad they didn't
the conversation
confirm
got sidetracked.
I'm so glad that they didn't confirm it in that garden scene. I'm so glad that he didn't.
And it would have been completely the half-based man's personality as well to just go, yes, he pushed me, or yes, I fell. He was just like, where am I?
Yeah, if he did that, that would have just taken away all of the power from that ending. If he had just confirmed it. So, what else is there to talk about?
Not really too much, except for maybe the new, slightly different TARDIS interior, but
I like it. It's got a...
There are bookcases and there are red things.
yeah, pretty much.
It's more
still
vine
no
things,
round things.
more bookcases, reclined. Subtle changes that I think made the very... I don't think it was plain, it was a little bland. Matt Smith's new TARDIS interior, and it was very cold, but I don't think it should have... I don't even think for Matt Smith it should have been that color. I think the warm orange color, or amber, sorry, just gives it a nicer feel.
It does.
Were the bookcases always on the scaffolding?
No,
Were they
they're
always there?
brand new.
Okay, because that's
They're
really
brand new.
cool.
Yeah, I like that. It gives it a more... I think this is what I didn't like about Matt Smith's TARDIS interior. It didn't feel like a home, it just felt like a machine.
Yeah, whereas his first interior, it felt somewhat homey.
But with this, it just feels like a bit of a home. It feels like his machine to take it for time and space, but it also feels like this is where he lives, this is his home at the end of the day.
It feels like a cross between Matt Smith's Series 7 Part 2 TARDIS and Paul McGann's TARDIS.
Yeah. And it's amber / orange.
Because Paul McGann's TARDIS is essentially just a big living room with a console in the middle.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Like
beautiful.
he has a
really nice
record
recliner,
player,
but-
he's making tea. It feels like a
He's
combination
got
of the two.
drawers of stuff.
Yes.
He's got a bowl with jelly babies in it. Yeah, because the first... I like the first shot we see of Capaldi in his new costume, and the TARDIS is him in the recliner reading a book. It's not him...
So it is a callback to the Eighth Doctor.
It's not him,
It's him making the place his own.
secretly... Yeah, it's not him secretly, emerging from behind the console going, surprise, it's me! Or it's not a bloody montage of him choosing his costume. I love that they didn't give us a montage of him getting in his new costume. I love that it was just... Ta-da! I'm in my new costume. What do you think? With that little coat flip as well, just the unbutton and... What do you think? I love that.
He looks a bit like a magician without the hat and rabbit.
Yeah, but just like how we didn't see the red until he just flick open that button and just goes, what do you think?
So
And then
cool.
there's red stripes. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's so cool.
It's definitely Pertwee in the costume.
The TARDIS is orange, so I'm just going to say yes, it's great. Yeah, it's a great costume, but the TARDIS is orange, so it's automatically great in my book.
Your biases.
Biased.
You're biased for orange. Unsubscribed.
So yeah, Deep Breath. It was a start.
I want to give it a marking of 10, but I don't think I have one.
Okay.
If it was, it would be almost 10.
Almost 10.
8-ish.
I think 7. I think 7.
I think 7.5 maybe.
Decimals are cheating.
Well, I want to put it between 7 and 8.
What would you give it, Shoop?
That is not a number.
Nice, and I'll say a 9.
9. 7, 7.5, 8, and 9. Except Needles isn't valid because it's a decimal point.
Okay, well, if that is everything, thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Oh, it's been great having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, I was here. Bye-bye.
That's the end of the third N07 podcast. Next time, we're probably going to talk about Pokemon, maybe. That's the plan that Frank and I have. So, as always, I'm Andrew.
I'm Falco.
I'm Shoop.
I am Trilbee.
Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.